1985 was an interesting year. Okay, calm down. What's going on? Who are you? It's okay, I'm you from the future, and you've just time traveled. Okay. So, where are we? When are we? We're descending toward Whidbey Island, Washington at 4:29 p.m. on Wednesday, October 21st, 2015. 2015? You mean we're in the future? Wait, the future? What do you mean? How can we be in the future? I don't know how to tell you this, but you're in a time machine. And this is the year 2015? October 21st, 2015. Kinda bland. Well, yeah, you're not outside. Like I said, you're in a time machine. And this is where? The waiting room? You're in a time machine flying through the sky and you're disappointed? All I've seen so far is an empty room and a guy who kinda looks like me but with worse hair. For all I know, this is a drug-induced dream. Why would it be drug-induced? No reason. Well, I promise you it's not a dream, it's all real. Even this crummy room. It's not crummy! Well, it is, but we made it that way on purpose. Alright, we thought the main part of the ship would be a bit much for you, so we made this room to resemble a normal American house. Okay? So, why am I here, and who's we? You're here because we need your help. With what? It's a bit complicated. More complicated than bringing me a year into the future. Yeah, like way more. You're here because we need your help. I already said that. What, I missed my cue? Yeah. Oh. Who are you? Hello, I'm the doctor. This is Madeline. Joshua, sorry. You knew that though, so I didn't need to... Hi. The doctor? What are you, the medic? No, I'm the doctor, I just said so. Doctor and medic are pronounced very differently. I don't know how you could confuse the two. That's my name. Oh. That's a name? Yeah, well, not my birth name. So, somewhere along the line you just decided to change your name to the doctor? Yeah? What's wrong with that? Nothing really, it's just a tad odd. Really? I'd say it's a tad ood. You promised you wouldn't say that again. Either way, my name and terrible forced puns are not why you're here. So why am I here? The other me said it was complicated. It is, and I really don't want to have to explain everything to you. Well, is it gonna take long? I have a review to make. We took you right before you made the Back to the Future review because you've been studying up on the movie, the sequels, the show, the video game, and all things time travel. Okay, but you're me. Everything I know, you know, and more. Yeah, but it's been quite a while since I made the review. I don't have everything just there, fresh in my mind. So you want me to make the review now? Here. We have a bit of a problem and we can't fix it. We think the answer is somewhere in there. Okay. Where's the camera? "1985 was an interesting year. A lot of big movies came out that defined what we think of when someone says 80s movie. Not to discredit 84 and 86. In fact, it was really these 3 years that some of the most successful and loved movies of the 80s came out. With 84, we got Ghostbusters, The Terminator, Footloose, The Karate Kid, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Gremlins, and 1984, which I know nothing about, other than the title's the same as the year. 86 brought us Stand By Me, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Aliens, and Maximum Overdrive. Okay, that was really stupid. But then in 1985, right smack dab in the middle of the century, decade, not century, we got The Breakfast Club, The Goonies, Rocky IV, Rambo 2, European Vacation, Teen Wolf, and best of all, and my favorite movie of all time, Back to the Future. Back to the Future was created by these two guys, Rob and Bob. Can you guess which one is which? Bob Gale and Robert Zemeckis created the movie after Bob Gale came across his dad's old high school yearbook and wondered if they would have been friends in high school. But it was this thought that inspired Bob Gale to create Back to the Future. He and Robert Zemeckis wrote it and spent quite a while trying to sell it to different companies. None of them liked it. Most thought that it needed to be raunchier. They also tried selling it to Disney, who was on the complete opposite side of the spectrum. Disney thought it was way too raunchy and dirty, and that the mere idea of a girl falling in love with her son, albeit accidentally, was disgusting. Rob and Bob finally found success with Universal Studios. Except for a couple suggestions from higher-ups and some trouble keeping the name Back to the Future, they were pretty much allowed to do what they wanted with the movie, provided of course they make it within a certain time and budget. They approached Michael J. Fox to play Marty, but at the time he was the star of Family Ties, and his co-star was pregnant, so she wasn't on the show as much and he was on it a lot more. So sadly he was unavailable to play Marty. So Rob and Bob settled on Eric Stoltz and cast most of the rest of the cast accordingly. After 4 to 7 weeks of filming, Eric Stoltz, Bob Gale, and Robert Zemeckis all agreed that Stoltz just wasn't working out. He didn't have the kind of humor they wanted, he didn't have the best chemistry with the other actors, he wasn't what they wanted or what the movie needed. So, Rob and Bob convinced Universal Studios to let them reshoot 4 to 7 weeks of footage with a new actor. They again approached Michael J. Fox, and by then his co-star on Family Ties was back on full-time, so they thought it might be possible. Luckily, they were able to make an arrangement with the Family Ties people, so Michael could film Back to the Future, but the show had to come first. No being late or even missing a table read, Family Ties was his priority. This resulted in him getting about 3 hours of sleep a day, if he was lucky. He would get done filming the show, then sleep in the back of a car while he was driven to the Back to the Future set, then get a few hours of sleep and go back to Family Ties the next morning. They filmed all the daytime scenes on the weekends. As strenuous as this might have been, it was well worth it, and I think the movie shows for itself. But let's review it anyway. We start our movie with the title, opening credits, and some exposition about a research facility missing some plutonium. We see a few of Doc's weird contraptions, along with quite a few clocks. Marty comes in, and you can already see his relationship with Doc. From the use of the spare key and the few words he says, you can tell he doesn't live here, but whoever's house this is, he feels quite comfortable and at home in it. And not afraid to cause a little property damage. Doc calls and asks Marty to meet him at the mall at 1:15 a.m. Doc reveals that he has a big experiment he needs Marty's help to test. He also reveals another one of his experiments.
Perfect! My experiment worked! They're all exactly 25 minutes slow!
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that it's 8:25?
Precisely!
Damn. I'm late for school.
Marty leaves in a rush and gets to school where his girlfriend Jennifer is waiting for him. Apparently this is the 4th time in a row he's been late for school. Unfortunately, he and Jennifer are caught by their principal, Mr. Strickland. Real subtle. They each get tardy slips, and Mr. Strickland berates Marty for being friends with Doc. As authoritative and kind of bullying as Strickland appears in this scene, he seems to be genuinely concerned about Marty and his well-being, at least to some degree. After school, Marty's band is auditioning to play at the dance, and we see that Marty is actually quite good with the guitar, though a little cocky. But the faculty members holding the audition seem less than impressed, and like a lot of music at the time, they thought it was just too darn loud. Marty and Jennifer leave, Marty being dismayed by his failed audition. And we see that, while Marty is obviously talented, he doesn't have a lot of confidence in himself. This one bad audition is enough to convince Marty that he isn't cut out for music. He wants to be a musician, but inside he yearns for bigger things. He just doesn't know it quite yet.
It's like Doc's
Yeah,
always
I
saying.
know. If you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything.
Marty's heard this from Doc a million times, but he's never really understood what it means.
What if I send in the tape and they don't like it? I mean, what if they say I'm no good? What if they say, get out of here, kid, you got no future? I mean, I just don't think I can take that kind of rejection. Jesus, I'm starting to sound like my old man.
Marty's also heard this from George quite a few times. It's partially the reason why he's never been able to follow or understand Doc's sayings. He has these sayings in his head, but he naturally falls into fear of rejection. Doc may be his best friend, but he's been around George his entire life. Plus, genetics.
Someday, Jennifer. Someday.
But that day will never come if Marty can't face his fears.
Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower!
There you go, lady. There's a quarter.
I just love how he points out the fact that he's intentionally giving her a very small amount of money. But I think what sells it is her totally straight reaction to it. She's legitimately happy that he donated some money, whatever the amount.
Jennifer!
It's my dad.
Right.
I've got to go.
This pretty much ends Jennifer's role in the movie, but she's actually done quite a bit. She helps Marty, tolerates the consequences of his choices, she supports him, and tries to motivate him. And in her exit scene here, she admits that she loves him.
That's the power of love. That's the power of love.
Riding in the back of a police car, not the best choice. Marty gets home to find that Biff has wrecked George's car, destroying his only way to get to the lake. We see here that George lets himself get pushed around by Biff over anything. Biff was drinking and driving and crashed George's car, but George doesn't have enough courage to stand up to him.
Can I assume that your insurance is going to pay for the damage?
My insurance. It's your car. Your insurance should pay for it. I want to know who's going to pay for this. I spilled beer all over when that car smashed into me. Who's going to pay my cleaning bill?
You can tell this is something that's been going on for a while. George laughs when Biff makes a fool of him, trying to convince himself that it's not that bad and that they're friends of some sort. But he also doesn't want to look weak in front of his son, who's so used to this that he immediately moves on to the car.
Biff just happens to be my supervisor, and I'm afraid I'm just not very good at confrontations. Pick the car, Dad.
That night at dinner, we see a bit more of what George is like around his family as a whole. Marty's brother Dave is a delivery boy of some sort, and a lot more like George than Marty is. His sister Linda is just sort of there, and his mom Lorraine is a drunk who just seems happy the way things are. But it's not hard to see that she, like Marty, desires something more, something bigger and better. She also isn't the biggest fan of Jennifer.
Any girl who calls up a boy is just asking for trouble.
Lorraine thinks it's disgusting what girls like Jennifer do, or at least what she thinks Jennifer is like. She doesn't really know Jennifer, but from what she's seen of her, she can tell that they probably have certain traits in common. Knowing how her own life turned out, she doesn't want Marty to make the same mistakes. She still insists, though, that she was a perfect, clean-cut, wholesome girl.
Then how am I supposed to ever meet anybody? Well, it'll just happen. Like the way I met your father. That was so stupid. Grandpa hit him with the car. It was meant to be.
Lorraine explains, for the millionth time apparently, how she and George met and fell in love.
Still don't understand what Dad was doing in the middle of the street.
What was it, George? Bird watching?
What, Lorraine? What?
You heard what she said, you peeping Tom.
Your father kissed me for the very first time on that dance floor. It was then that I realized that I was going to spend the rest of my life with him.
Oh, no.
Marty picks up Doc's video camera and gets to Twin Pines Mall right on schedule. Then, all dramatic-like, the DeLorean is revealed. And this is spectacular. And, after 19 minutes of the movie, we finally get to see Doc.
Doc!
Marty, you made it.
Yeah.
Welcome to my latest experiment. This is a big one, the one I've been waiting for all my life.
Well, it's a DeLorean, right?
Bear with
What
me,
are you
Marty.
doing?
All your questions will be answered. Roll tape.
Marty starts filming and Doc makes an introduction for his scientific breakthrough. He puts Einstein in the DeLorean and straps him in. He shows that they each have watches that are synced right down to the second, and then he starts driving the car via remote control. Which is incredibly impressive. I've had a few remote control cars in my life, but they usually didn't get much bigger than a toy car. Oddly enough, I find the time travel more believable than Doc somehow hooking up this real-life car to a remote. Either way, he drives it to the end of the parking lot.
My calculations are correct. When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious shit.
He starts rolling the back wheels, all the way up to 65 miles an hour. Then, he lets the brakes go, and so does the car.
Watch this, watch this.
What did I tell you? 88 miles per hour!
Now, I realize Doc is very smart. Heck, he invented time travel. But what if his calculations had been off by even a second? It would probably be a very different movie from then on.
Jesus Christ, Doc, you disintegrated Einstein.
Calm down, Marty. I didn't disintegrate anything. The molecular structure of both Einstein and the car are completely intact.
Where the hell are they?
The appropriate question is, when the hell are they? You see, Einstein has just become the world's first time traveler. I sent him into the future. 1 minute into the future, to be exact. And precisely 1:21 a.m. in 0 seconds, we shall catch up with him at the time machine.
Wait a minute, Doc. Are you telling me that you built a time machine? Out of a DeLorean?
Despite Doc's claim that Einstein went 1 minute into the future, it actually takes about 1 minute and 20 seconds for him to show up again. Then again, that's movie time. After making sure that Einstein's okay, Doc proceeds to explain how the time traveling works. He also reflects back on when he thought of the flux capacitor and how much things have changed since then. He shows Marty how it's powered by some totally legal plutonium and reveals he's going to travel into the future. Their enjoyment is short-lived, however, as the Libyans Doc stole the plutonium from show up. Doc and Marty try to take cover, but Doc ends up getting shot. Oops. Marty gets in the DeLorean and tries to escape the Libyans, but he accidentally turns on the time circuits, and trying to outrun them at 90 miles an hour, he hits 88 and time travels to November 5th, 1955, the date that Doc had put in earlier. He ends up on a farm that existed before the mall and crashes into a family's barn. Mistaking him for an alien, they try to kill Marty, and while escaping he accidentally runs over one of 2 pine trees the mall was named after. Trying to convince himself it's all a dream, Marty sees the neighborhood he lives in doesn't even exist yet. It's just a construction plant at this point. Luckily, an old couple drives by and Marty seeks their help.
Listen, you gotta help me.
Stop Wilbur,
Jeez, this lady's really freaked out by a guy in a suit. Yeah, exactly what part of Marty's attire convinced this woman that they were doomed? With the radiation suit and helmet, Marty kinda looked like a construction guy. Not to mention they're 5 feet from a construction site. I guess she's just psychic?
Listen, you gotta help me.
Stop Wilbur,
Don't stop or we're doomed? What made you think that? You know what? Now I'm curious. I gotta know what this chick's deal is. Do you guys have a computer I can use? Yeah, I think so. Apparently she's saying, don't stop, Wilbur, don't. I had no idea. All my life I thought she was saying, don't stop or we're doomed. Either way, that reaction doesn't fit at all. Oh well. Marty hides the DeLorean behind the estate sign and proceeds to walk the 2 miles to town square. Wow, he's looking pretty good for a guy who just walked 2 miles. Granted, it's not the hardest thing in the world, but he doesn't even look a little tired. His hair is dry as a bone. Anyway, Marty makes his way through town square while Mr. Sandman is playing. You know, I've watched this movie so many times that car horn is just a part of the song to me now. I can never hear it without expecting a 10 seconds in. After finding a newspaper with the date on it, Marty accepts the fact that he's stuck in the past. He goes in a Lou's Cafe to try to find Doc in a phone book. This scene is great for showing us even little differences between what Marty's used to and what 1955 is used to.
All right, give me a Pepsi free.
You want a Pepsi, pal? You're gonna pay for it.
Despite the fact that Pepsi Free was only popular in 1985 for like 5 minutes, it's still a funny scene. But when I was a kid and watched this, I didn't know that Pepsi Free was a caffeine-free Pepsi. I just figured it was some weird deal in 1985 where you would actually get a free Pepsi just by asking for it. Needless to say, it made a lot more sense after I found out what it was. Marty settles on something without sugar, and soon realizes he's sitting next to his dad. This moment was described by Robert Zemeckis as the moment where audiences really got it. They understood what was happening, they understood where Marty stood relative to the plot, they understood the movie. As Marty freaks out by meeting a young George, a young Biff walks in, probably not helping Marty's likely heart attack right now. Biff and his cronies walk over to George, and we see a very similar conversation to the one in Marty's house earlier. Almost word for word, in fact.
You got my homework finished, McFly?
Well, actually, I figured since it wasn't due till Monday.
Hello? Hello? Anybody home? Hey, think, McFly, think. I gotta have time to recopy it. You realize what would happen if I hand in my homework in your handwriting? I'll get kicked out of school. You wouldn't want that to happen, would you? Would you?
Well, now, of course not.
No,
Biff, I wouldn't want
no.
that to happen.
This dumb dance of Biff complaining to George about his work not being done, George apologizing, promising to get it done the next day, and Biff tricking George with the "your shoes untied," is a dance they've done a million times by this point, and 30 years later they'll still be doing it. George leaves and Marty chases after him. He finds George in a tree with binoculars watching a girl across the street get undressed.
He's a peeping Tom.
But Tom gets his comeuppance and falls onto the road. A car starts coming towards him, and without the slightest hesitation, Marty pushes George out of the way and gets hit himself. He wakes up 9 hours later in a bed. First thinking it's a dream, he realizes it's the bed of the person who hit him. Bad news for Marty, though, as the person who hit him was Lorraine's dad. He is now in his mother's bed. Even better, it's 30 years ago, and Lorraine doesn't know Marty just like George didn't, and she starts coming on to him. That's a tad awkward. Marty doesn't even realize it yet, but he's just intervened in his parents' meeting. He doesn't put together that this is the moment Lorraine has been talking about non-stop his entire life. Marty pushed George out of the way, so he got hit instead of George. That's just the kind of person Marty is. But he probably would have let it happen if he had known the trouble it would cause. Lorraine thinks Marty's name is Calvin Klein because of his underwear, and Marty just sort of goes along with it. But luckily, Lorraine's mom calls her down to dinner, and for the second time we get a joke about Marty being a sailor because of his vest. Lorraine's father, Sam, is excited because he had just got their TV to work, which he had just picked up that day. In fact, that's probably why he was driving home and hit Marty in the first place. Lorraine's family eats as they watch their first television set.
Hey, I've seen this one. This is a classic. This is where Ralph dresses up as a man from space.
What do you mean you've seen this? It's brand new.
What, does he have IMDb up on his phone, checking to see when the episode came out? Hey, what's that on the table? Is that his phone?
Yeah, well, I saw it on a rerun.
What's a rerun?
Lorraine suggests that Marty stay the night because his parents aren't home, which, now that I think about it, is true. Lorraine's mom likes the idea, but Marty leaves when Lorraine starts groping his leg. Appropriate response. Marty goes to Doc's house, following the address he got from the phone book, to find that Doc used to live in a mansion, but it eventually burned down. He knocks on the door and gets an unexpected response.
Doc? Don't say a word.
Doc!
I don't want to know your name. I don't want to know anything about you.
Listen, Doc. Doc.
Don't
Doc,
tell me anything.
Doc, you gotta help.
Quiet.
Doc tries to read Marty's mind with his latest invention.
Let's see now. You come here from a great distance?
Yeah, exactly.
Don't tell me. You want me to buy a subscription to the Saturday Evening Post?
No.
Not a word, not a word, not a word now. Quiet. Donations. You want me to make a donation to the Coast Guard Youth Auxiliary?
Doc. I'm from the future. I came here in a time machine that you invented. Now I need your help to get back to the year 1985.
Do you know what this means? It means that this damn thing doesn't work at all.
Doc, you gotta help me. You were the only one who knows how your time machine works.
Doc says he hasn't invented any time machine, and Marty tries to prove that he's from the future. He shows Doc his driver's license and a picture of him and his siblings, but Doc isn't convinced. He points out that the picture is obviously fake. In fact, they cut off Dave's hair, which is actually because Marty has already altered the timeline. But I didn't even notice that for a long time. I always thought he was saying something about his mother's hair, as if the girl in the picture was Marty's mother who cut her hair to appear younger, like Marty's sister. It wasn't until the past year or so that I found out what Doc was actually saying and why. It shows that even 10 years after watching the movie the first time, I'm still finding new things in it. Marty still tries to prove he's from the future, so Doc asks him who the president is in 1985. That man being Ronald Reagan, the actor. Doc understandably doesn't believe him.
Then who's vice president? Jerry Lewis?
Marty's finally able to convince Doc by telling him the story of the bruise on his head, which future Doc told Marty shortly before he traveled. Doc and Marty go to the real estate sign and Marty shows him the DeLorean. They watch the video that Marty took and Doc gets some unfortunate news. The DeLorean requires 1.21 gigawatts of electricity to time travel, which can only be generated by a nuclear reaction, or a bolt of lightning.
Unfortunately, you never know when or where it's ever gonna strike.
We do now.
Luckily, Marty still has the Save the Clock Tower flyer from earlier, which says that lightning will strike it that Saturday at 10:04 p.m. Doc plans to harness the energy into the DeLorean and send Marty back. But whoops, Marty also prevented his parents from a meeting, so they have to deal with that. Doc and Marty go to the high school the next day and see that Marty's mother is now in love with him because of the Florence Nightingale effect.
It happens in hospitals when nurses fall in love with their patients.
Marty tries to get George and Lorraine acquainted, but Lorraine is way more focused on Marty, so he tries to get George to ask her out to the dance, and while doing so, something very familiar happens.
What are you writing? Stories. Science fiction stories about, visitors coming down to Earth from other planets. Get out of town. I didn't know you did anything creative. Let me read some. Oh, no. I never let anybody read my stories. Why not? Well, what if they didn't like them? What if they told me I was no good? I guess that would be pretty hard for somebody to understand. No. No, not hard at all.
Marty keeps insisting that George ask Lorraine to the dance, but George doesn't want to miss his favorite TV show, Science Fiction Theater. This gives Marty the idea to pretend to be an alien named Darth Vader from Vulcan and threaten to melt George's brain if he doesn't ask Lorraine to the dance.
Yeah, well, let's just keep this brain-melting stuff to ourselves, okay? Oh, yeah.
George is just about to ask Lorraine to the dance when Biff comes in. He and Marty get in a little tussle, which leads to Biff chasing Marty all around town square. Biff in his car and Marty on his makeshift skateboard. Marty's able to lead Biff and his car into a truck of, well...
I'm gonna get that son of a bitch.
Marty gets back to Doc's to find him watching the future tape over and over. He tries to tell Doc about him getting shot in the future, but he doesn't want to hear it and risk messing up the future. But he does want to show Marty something. Doc has made a model of town square. Not to scale and not painted, but it's nice, I guess. He uses a toy car and an electrified wire to model what will happen at the clock tower on Saturday. Hoping that doesn't happen for real, Doc and Marty are interrupted by Lorraine. Lorraine asks Marty to ask her to the dance, and he's pretty much forced to say yes. So he changes his plan to have George pretend to beat up Marty at the dance.
No, I'm not gonna hit you in the
George.
stomach.
Come on, right here. Come on.
There, that was good. She'll believe that. I know she will. I'm fine.
Marty tells George not to worry about it, and that if he puts his mind to it, he can accomplish anything. Marty is finally starting to actually follow this advice, and now he's given it to someone else. His father, no less. On Saturday, Doc is starting to set up the wires, and he admits to Marty that he's made a real difference in his life, and he'll be sad to see him go. And Marty admits to Doc that he's really nervous about what he has to do to Lorraine, and worried that it'll mess him up.
Well, what if I go back to the future and I end up being gay?
Why shouldn't you be happy?
Marty again tries to tell Doc about what happens to him in the future, but he refuses to hear it. So Marty writes him a letter telling him everything about getting shot, and writes, "Do not open until 1985 on it, and puts it in Doc's coat. At the dance, Marty tries to seem like he's making a move on Lorraine, but understandably he has a little trouble. Things get worse when Lorraine makes a move on him, but she stops because it feels like she's kissing her brother. Luckily, George comes right then, but unluckily it's Biff, not George. He has his cronies take Marty away and they end up putting him in the trunk of the band's car. Marvin, one of the band members, is able to break Marty out of the trunk, but messes up his hand while doing so. Right then, George gets to the car, mistaking Biff for Marty. And what follows is one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie, possibly my most favorite.
Hey, you, get your damn hands off.
Oh, I think you got the wrong car, McFly.
George, help me, please.
Just turn around, McFly, and walk away. Are you deaf, McFly? Close the door and beat it.
George has never been able to stand up for himself. He's been pushed around by Biff for years. He's too scared about what might happen if he did, what Biff might do to him. But now it's not just George and Biff. Someone else is involved. Someone George cares about is being hurt, and he wants it to stop.
No, Biff. You leave her alone.
All right, McFly. You're asking for it, and now you're gonna get it.
Biff, stop it! Biff, you'll break his arm! Biff! Biff, leave him alone! Let him go! Let him go!
Biff pushes Lorraine to the ground and continues to bend George's arm. And all those years of emotional and physical abuse build up inside George and come back to bite Biff in the butt.
Are you okay?
They walk away to go to the dance, and Marty runs to get the band. Unfortunately, Marvin can't play the guitar with his messed up hand.
Hey man, the dance is over. Unless you know somebody else that can play the guitar.
Pretty much everything taking place at the school dance is perfect, and this scene is almost as good as the previous one. George dances with Lorraine, then some guy comes and takes Lorraine to dance with him. And no joke, this guy is actually credited as Obnoxious Kid. Marty starts to fade away and can't play the song right. Then George pushes the guy down and kisses Lorraine, with the score perfectly matching the song. Despite messing up most of Earth Angel, Marvin wants Marty to do another song. So he chooses Johnny Be Good, which totally wouldn't mess up time or anything. He starts playing and the students get into it. I just love this girl. She hears that George knocked out Biff, and her first thought is, you know, this guy would make a good president. Marty gets a little carried away and does just about every single guitar move that hadn't been invented yet. Let's check into the clock tower. What's up, Doc?
Damn, where's that kid?
I see.
Damn.
Go on.
Damn.
Marty shows up with less than 10 minutes left.
You're late. You have no concept of time.
Hey, come on! I had to change. I think I'm going back in that suit. God, the old man really came through. It worked.
What?
He laid out Biff in one punch. I didn't know he had it in him. He's never stood up to Biff in his life.
Ever?
No, what? What's the matter?
It'll be fine. It probably won't definitely completely alter your entire life or anything. Doc enters in the same time Marty left, so when he gets back it'll be like he was never gone. Except he'll be 2 miles away. Didn't really think that one through, did you, Doc?
Of course.
Doc puts a timer in the DeLorean so Marty will know when to drive. And that's it. Nothing else to prep. So with a little time to kill, Doc and Marty say a heartfelt goodbye to each other.
In about 30 years.
I hope so.
Marty is just about to leave when everything that could goes wrong. Doc finds the letter and tears it up and refuses for the last time to hear anything about the future. So Marty decides to just tell him straight up. But then a tree branch falls and disconnects the wire from the clock tower. Doc goes up to the top and Marty gives him the rope. Marty tries again to tell him about getting shot, but there's no time.
You got less than 4 minutes.
It then occurs to Marty that if he wants more time to warn Doc, he can. He's got a time machine. But he only sets it for 10 minutes earlier. That might feel like enough time to some, but the mall scene in the beginning of the movie was over 10 minutes. So even if he somehow got all the way to the mall 10 minutes before the other Marty left, he would still get there right about here, which is not early enough to warn Doc without other Marty seeing him and totally messing up the timeline. But you know what? That was a week ago for Marty. His memory's probably a little hazy. Plus, he's under a lot of pressure and really nervous. So nervous, in fact, that he enters 11 minutes instead of 10. That's cheating. Meanwhile, Doc isn't having much fun trying to fix the cable, as he literally races the clock. He steps on a weak part of the tower and almost falls to his untimely death. Untimely? Get it? Because he's hanging off a clock. Speaking of clocks, Marty's goes off, so he hits the gas, and the car dies. But he starts it again by banging his head on the steering wheel. Okay, everything's going to plan again. Until Doc tries to reconnect the cables and finds that they're now too short because of the tree. As Marty races down the road, the scene gets more and more intense. In fact, it actually does. 10 years after seeing this movie for the first time, this is still one of the most tense scenes of any movie I've ever seen. Every time I watch this, I honestly don't know if Marty's gonna make it or not. With every second, he gets closer and closer to the clock tower, his life in Doc's hands. So Doc pulls with all his might and is finally able to get the cables together. But in doing so, he disconnects the cable at the other end. 60 miles an hour, Marty has only a minute to get to the clock tower. Doc wraps part of the cable around the minute hand and slides down to the ground. 86 miles an hour, Doc struggles to pull the cable from the tree as Marty watches helplessly. 88 miles an hour, the DeLorean starts to light up and Doc frees the cable. Marty closes his eyes, hoping for the best. The clock strikes 10:04, and so does the lightning, shooting down the cable as Doc plugs it in at the last possible moment. The hook on the DeLorean connects with the wire above, and Marty is transported back to the future. We return to 1985. As former mayor Red Thompson sleeps on a bench, Marty reappears in a flash of light.
Crazy drunk driver.
Unfortunately, he shows up just in time to see the Libyans on their way to the mall.
Libyans.
With the car not working again, he chases them on foot. He shows up at the mall, which is now Lone Pine Mall instead of Twin Pines, just as Doc gets shot. All of that work Marty did, all of that effort he put in to try and save Doc's life, it was all for nothing. And, for the second time, Marty watches his best friend fall dead. The other Marty soon disappears, having no idea what trouble awaits him, and our Marty rushes over to Doc.
Doc! Doc!
Oh. No. You're alive. Bulletproof vest. How did you know? I never got a chance to tell you. What about all that talk about screwing up future events, the space-time continuum?
Well, I figured. What the hell?
Throughout the entire movie, Doc has almost been always talking scientific. Here's what we'll do, here's when we'll do it, here's how we'll do it. But at some point, he realized his friend was trying many, many times to tell him something, and maybe that's a bit more important than altering the future. Unlike other movies, and even other time travel movies, where two guys will say in a scene, "We are friends, we get along, we would die for each other," then proceed to have no chemistry or screen time together, Doc and Marty feel like real, actual friends. Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd have great chemistry together, chemistry that refuses to die. I have no trouble believing that these two people have been friends for years. And it's not just some old cranky guy who puts up with this kid because he needs his help or something, as proven by 1955 Doc. This version of him has never even met Marty, but they get along as soon as they do meet. Doc drops Marty off at his house and reveals that he's still planning to travel to the future. They say goodbye, and Marty goes inside for some well-deserved and much-needed sleep. The next morning, Marty wakes up to find that his whole life has changed as a result of his meddling with the past. His house is nice, his siblings have actual jobs, and probably most important of all, his parents are happy. They actually get along, they actually love each other. And because of Marty telling him that he can do anything if he puts his mind to it, George is now a successful writer. Marty has altered the past, but for the better, for the much, much better. He also gets a nice little surprise when he finds out that, as a result of George standing up to Biff, Biff is now a friendly, spineless auto dealer. And, as if things couldn't get any better, another cherry on top is that Marty has the truck that he wanted in the beginning of the movie.
Keys.
He goes out to the garage to admire it when Jennifer shows up.
How about a ride, mister?
Did she know when he would be out there, or did she just wait out there all morning hoping he would come out? Either way, Marty's glad to see Jennifer after a week of motherly love. But just as they're about to kiss, Doc shows up from the future.
Marty! You've got to come back with me!
Where?
Back to the future! It's your kids, Marty! Something has got to be done about your kids!
Hey, Doc, we better back up. We don't have enough road to get up to 88.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Then the DeLorean rises, turns around, flies towards the camera, and disappears in a flash of light. And one of the greatest films of all time ends, never to be seen or heard from again. Until 4 years later. What's happening? I was able to get the TARDIS working from what you said in your review. You did? Well, I thought I did, until a moment ago when this happened.
Make a one man weep, make another man sing. Changing a heart to a little white dove. More than a feeling, that's the power of love. Tougher than diamonds, rich like cream. Stronger and harder than a bad girl's dream. Make a bad word